Mike, kind of a newsy day and a newsy week. Let me start on the LSU side of things because there was a player and coach edition that I wanted to get your opinion on. Let's start with the player. LSU going to the baseball team and plucking Nick Storz away. What's your thought of what Storz' role might be able to be in this program?
Well, first of all, I think what Thaddeus Moss did has changed the tight end position forever at LSU. And now you start to see the after effects of Moss. And this goes back to a story. Less than 48 hours after Coach O got the job at LSU, him and I talked. And, he brought up to me, hey, listen, first things first, we got to get better up front, offensive, defensive lines. We got to be able to match up there. He felt that's where Alabama had pulled away from the rest of the teams in the Southeast Conference and basically the rest of the teams in college football. And he was right about that, but he brought the point up to me about at quarterback. And his deal is, we get the first one, then the rest, I think, would follow. And he brought up the story to me about Carson Palmer at USC.
Mm-hmm.
And his deal was, just think about before. He said, Mike, you got the numbers better than I do. How many quarterbacks from Southern Cal had been selected in the draft in the 5 or 6 years before Carson? Well, in the 6 years prior to Carson, one.
Who was it?
His name is Kyle Wirtschurz, and he went to the Packers in the 12th round.
Okay.
That's when the draft was still 12 rounds.
Okay.
And so he was a late round pick, and he said, just think about what's happened since in that short run. And he was right about it. It became Carson, and he became the catalyst. He became the guy that sort of knocked everything over, because then it became Matt Castle, Matt Leinart, John David Booty, Mark Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
And as he said, you get the first one, then the rest will follow. Aren't we seeing that at what's happening at tight end? In essence, what Moss has done is signaling to the rest now, hey, this team is going to get you the ball at the tight end position. Come to LSU to play. Now, okay, you got Gilbert, and you know what you got there. A guy who's, immensely gifted to play that tight end position and has a chance to be special. I'm interested also, too, in Jamal Pettigrew, because just look at him. That's how a tight end should be built. I mean, When you take a look at it. Now, again, he's got to stay healthy. And now all of a sudden you got another situation here. Was a guy who has played some football at the high school level. You just take a look at it. I mean, he's a big guy in that he's a 6'5", 250-pound plus athlete. I do know one thing: if you can play baseball, you got eye-hand coordination.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that right off the bat. So he's got that ability. How he handles getting hit is going to be another thing. Because I think with baseball players, one of the things, you're not getting run over by a little Toyota, each and every week. I mean, that's just not the case the way the game is played. And it's an interesting look at an athlete that is certainly skilled. Now, I can't say I've seen him and what he can do out on a football field. And it's different high school ball in comparison to playing college football, and you've been away for it for a little while. But, boy, it's an interesting piece of the puzzle. Only thing I know in talking to a lot of people that coach on defense is I hate it, because if LSU's going to go 3 wide out, and then you got a tight end split out, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to cover that guy. Because I can go to nickel real quick, and so I got 3 cover guys. Then I got a tight end that's like another receiver. How do I match up against him? No linebacker is going to be able to cover that guy, or very few. linebackers can cover that. A real athletic tight end. Again, this ain't playing in your backyard. Now, this is real football. And that ability to spread the field out and get the ball to a big man receiver who can run. Now, I've not seen that part with Nick, so that's still in question. But, man, all I know is that is a nightmare mismatch when you have that sort of talent at tight end and what they're planning on doing with it. And Moss, again, he was the first, and you saw the type of season he had, and him and Joe had a good rapport between one another. Joe sort of knew where he was on the field, and, if I need you, I know where you're at. And Moss got open. How quickly all this can come together with Miles, with a freshman tight end in Eric Gilbert, with a guy that now he's a former baseball player playing football, and Jamal, who's talented but has had some downtime with injuries. But, Matt, it is if you're trying to defend that puts you certainly out of base real quickly. And it almost puts you in a dime coverage immediately. Mm-hmm. Because now you just can't have three guys back there that can cover up. You got to have four. Okay, and if you go to that, this is what just a thought from being around so many coaches. Okay, you're going to get smaller. Okay, I'm going to put another corner. I'm going to put a safety here, and I'm going to match up, and I'm going to send them downfield. You know what I do? I run the damn ball. I stick you to a football middle finger and say, okay, you're going to get smaller? I'm going to run it at you. Now, you got to tackle me. And so that becomes the rocking chair today in college football when you have that sort of talent that you can spread the field out, three wideouts, and like a fourth receiver, which is a tight end. And so you've got to get smaller to match up. You know what I do? I run it. Okay, you're going to show me that? You're going to get real small? I'm going to get real big with you, and I'm going to pound you and see how much you like that. And if you get a little bit bigger, then I'll throw the football. So, man, you like the cat. You constantly swinging that tail and not to get caught under the rocking chair. And it puts you into a bad spot. And how quickly that can all come together is going to be interesting for LSU because that's where now, Nick he wouldn't have been able to play it because he'd have been playing baseball. How much time with Gilbert? Because, again, that's a rapport thing with a quarterback, sort of knowing where you are all the time. But I thought it would really help Jamal. That's where, if Jamal's healthy, his relationship with Miles comes together there because then I know where you're at all the time. I think that was something special last year that we sort of underappreciated, didn't we? With Thad and with Joe, we saw just how great Jamar Chase is, and to be honest, I've done a couple of TV shows with this, and I think Jamar. On my rating list, Jamar is the highest rated wide receiver entering. What would be either his junior year coming out or his senior year that I've ever done at LSU.
Who would be next?
Well, that guy was Odell Beckham.
Odell, yeah.
Yeah, and then Michael Clayton comes into play. So you think about that, and you've got Terrace Marshall, who, if he can stay healthy, I think has got a chance to be real special. But Racing McMath is the guy. When you talk to other SEC coaches, their deal is, man, he's a 6'2.5", 225-pound receiver that's going to run you over. He catches the football. He ain't going down with no arm tackle. That's where LSU will hit big with the receivers. And it's going to open up everything for the tight end and whoever emerges as the receiver coming out of the backfield. If that's John Emery, who I think can catch the football really well. We'll see with Tyron Davis-Price how well he can catch the football coming out of the backfield. Chris Curry, we know that his real strength is his north-south toughness between the tackles, and he runs you over, how well he'll be able to get into that role, because I really think that that's an area, too, that we took for granted, Clyde. How well he could catch the ball, coming out the backfield. He makes a move on a guy, and, he's like stuck in cement, and Clyde's, gliding his way open, and then he makes that one little pirouette down the field. I'm just telling you that I keep telling this to people. I don't know how good their offensive line's going to be, because at that point we're just speculating on 4 or 5 new starters.
Sure.
But, man, that tight end running back position, how much has that evolved in 2 years? Thinking about what that was a couple years ago, and now looking at it today and seeing how gifted the athletes that you have at that tight end position. So, listen, I'm like everybody else. I'm interested to watch Nick and how well he takes a hit. It's different when you're out there on the field, how quickly you can come back from a big hit. But Gilbert, to me, and Pettigrew and him gives you quite a threesome that can really spread the field out. And red zone, how do you match?
Yeah.
Because that's where, plays sort of, you condense now. And so you're looking for a size matchup. So now what you've got, Pettigrew is, I think he's the smaller of the bunch. What, he's 6'4"?
Right.
Nick's 6'5".
He's tiny.
Eric's a little bit 6'5" and change. So now, I don't care who you got on him. If I put the ball in a certain spot, he's going to make that catch. That's where I think it makes such a huge difference. So it's an interesting little twist of a really good athlete giving this a shot to play football and see if can he excel in that position and do like what Iowa's doing.
Used to?
Use 2 of them.
Yeah.
If you have to. But, Iowa's not throwing the football like what LSU's doing. They built differently with Kurt. But, again, when you think about, Kittle and Fant and, those guys coming out, and you think Iowa's the one churning them out. And now all of a sudden you've got what LSU's being able to recruit and the young man from Colorado.
Yeah, Cole Taylor.
And so, man, I look at that position. Can you think of another one that's evolved quicker in a 24-month span than tight end?
Unless you want to go quarterback, Mike, because the guy last was pretty special. But I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, in essence, because of that spot, you got one.
Yeah.
You had one.
No, for sure.
And then now it's the same thing that's happened at quarterback has happened at tight end. You had one. Now the rest of them say, man, you saw all them catches. Now some of it, too, was, and this is no knock on Thaddeus, but he's Randy Moss's son. So, those announcers, they would get giddy with that. Oh, the son of Randy Moss.
Right.
But, all I know is if Gilbert is a third of what everybody says he could be, and just watching him in high school, he was like an 18-year-old going up against an 11-year-old. I mean, that was that big of a difference the way he played out on the field. He's got a chance to be special, but I'm interested in Jamal, and now with Nick getting involved here too, on how well that they'll be able to spread that field. They can protect Miles. Then that comment that Joe told us at the Manning camp, man, we're going to score 40, 45 points a game. Well, you might be looking at a repeat performance.
Yeah. Mike, we've heard a lot from Saints assistants over the last week. They've all been on different teleconferences. Anything particular that stood out to you of what's been said in the last week or so?
One thing I always listen to assistant coaches, they sort of try to tell you a story that you sort of got to pick up. On defense, how much they sort of gushed over Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of gathered, man, that, and he was a good player last year. He came in as a rookie. His ability to match up, being that third guy, being that slot guy, him being able to play safety in the slot, kind of maneuvering around. and you just hear it from the assistant coaches that his role's going to get expanded this year. And I think a lot of him. He's football smart. He gets it at a really high level. He plays the game pedal to the metal. That's how you want it played. He's a real physical football player. And so defensively, just kind of hearing how the assistants defensively were talking about it, Chauncey Gardner Johnson stands out because they're trying to tell you the story that, man, this guy's got a chance to be really, really good on that side of football. On the other side is Deonte. And it's interesting that in one of the final coaches shows we did toward the beginning, I guess it was in January before when the Saints got knocked out, Sean Payton made a comment to Bobby and I and Zach about, I think one of the things we got to do more is to get Deonte to touch the football more on the offensive side of the football. And he sort of threw it out very quickly and sort of maneuvered from it. But, look the impact of a guy like Tyler Lockett. Now, you think about Tyler's a 5'6" 3/4, about 180-pound wide receiver return man. But look at his impact on offense as a receiver and also on the jet sweep plays. And I think Sean sort of sees that in Deonte, that's what he could do for this offense also, is be more involved in touching the football a little bit more than as a return man because his ability to make plays with the football under his arms. So, and you heard the assistants. If it was Pete Carmichael, if it was CJ, they all sort of gushed a little bit about Harris, and so just reading into it, those two names to me stuck out, that they're telling you that, man, we think a lot of Chauncey Gardner Johnson and Deonte Harris. And with Deonte, not only getting him better in the return game, but also playing him more on the offensive side of the football, trust that he can take that hit and not put the ball on the carpet.
Mike, something else that that I was curious your thoughts is when they would talk about the rookies, and that's just always intriguing, right? Because there's a certain degree of unknown. And, man, to listen to Dan Campbell talk about Trautman, you were talking about Kittle and those, and he kind of talked about Trautman with sort of the Kittle effect. Is that a realistic expectation for Trautman? Maybe not year one, but in his time in New Orleans?
Yeah, I think what they see in him, one, when you have watched him at Dayton, he's a big receiver running down the field. So he gives you a wide radius to throw the football and catch it. Rarely does he make a hiccup as a catcher. He catches the ball clean. It's not a double clutch. It's out front with his hands. And the fact that they used him a lot as an inline blocker. Now, you watch tight ends today in college football, they're not asked to do it, but he did it at a small college. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and we've talked about this with Trautman. Adam, the first day, seemed a bit jittery, and which you can understand. It's the first time, he's playing in front of the eyes of the NFL there. And so, but day two, he had calmed down. He wasn't the nervous guy, and he was beating guys with moves. He was making the catch, everything else. But he showed a brand of physicality that you can see in practice. He likes the blocking part of it. And I think they're going to try to use him more. What really hurt was him not being here in the spring and the OTAs and the rookie camps. He didn't have that time to work with Drew Brees. He didn't have that time to do it. And I think about Jimmy Graham's first year.
Oh, yeah.
He struggled early on, and Jimmy was making the transition now from basketball to football. He had played that 1 year at Miami, but he's sort of making the transition. But toward the end of the year, you saw the impact that, and I'm not trying to compare him to Jimmy by any stretch, but what I'm saying is it took him a little while, then all of a sudden, Drew was, that 6'6" receiver, I know I can put the ball up there and he's going to go get it. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be long with Trautman. And he is as focused a young man as you can see. I mean, he really wants this to work out. I think sometimes the hardest thing to gauge when you're scouting a player is that desire. Because a lot of times once, you never know what money and fame and fortune and all that does to somebody's, ability to wake up in the morning and go work out and, to do extra time to put in the. For some guys, it doesn't really matter, but for others, it does. And you look at Adam Trautman and how he grew up and, his environment, and that guy wants it. Football means a lot to him. And so, I give the Saints a lot of credit there. They saw that feature in him as a player. Now, again, he was a small college player, and there may be a little transition there because you're not going up against the DBs that you were going up with when you were playing at Dayton. Okay, it's a different story. But I just think he's got a chance that once he can get that rapport down with Drew, that's going to work. And now, we talked about it at LSU, and you see how Drew likes to get the football to the tight end. That's something he's always liked to do from his college days to San Diego and now with the Saints. Cook had a really good back end of the season catching the football. And I think now you've got a young man here that's got a chance to be really, really good. The only thing with that is, and nobody's got an advantage on that part, him not being able to be here to work with Drew. I would have said maybe the impact would have been quicker had he had those rookie camps, mini camps, that sort of thing to work with him, but that just didn't happen.
Mike, let me get a thought on Jamal Adams. I'm sure you've seen the story today, but Adams is requesting a trade from the Jets. Any chance the Jets bite?
If they do, the dumb gets dumber. I mean, come on. Okay, for the first time in how many years, you don't have to face Brady. And now and this isn't the first time Jamal has asked for a trade. I think he's wanted out, and I think there is no doubt that the Jets now, I'm sure in a very short order, will say, well, man, we want Jamal here on a long-term contract. That tells me something's cooking here behind the scenes. I think, again, I don't know how you take away somebody who's that valuable because he can match up well, his play against the run, you can maneuver him around. We saw the impact Tyrann Mathieu made with the Chiefs last year. Jamal Adams is that type of player that you can maneuver him around. I just don't get what the Jets don't get with Jamal. I've heard from let's just say he's connected in the game agent-wise, and he thinks that one of the teams that would be very interested would be Seattle. Now, Dallas has been a team that's been brought up a lot. The thing there with financially, how do you make that fit if they're going to try to do this deal with Dak before that deadline? How do you fit Jamal Adams in, too? Again, you can always maneuver contracts around, but I think it'd be difficult. I think Seattle's a team to watch, and I even hate to say the second team he told me because it would be jump off the Huey P. Long type situation. But the other team that he tells me he thinks is very interested would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Enough with the LSU guys going to other teams in the NFC South.
Yeah, and that would make a lot of sense. In essence, for the Bucs, in that spot that, okay, we've got our guy on offense with Brady, and, okay, we think Devin's going to be the leader. But, man, if we could get Jamal, right now we're looking to win today, because I think Bruce Arians feels, man, the hell with that 3 years down the line. I'm not going to be here in Tampa in 3 years. Brady's not going to be here in 3 years.
Exactly.
And so, my thing is, if I'm going to win it, I got to win it now. And I got to do what I got to do to win today. And so it wouldn't shock me, with the Bucs, that they would be a team willing to give up a first and another draft choice somewhere down the line to pick up a guy like Jamal. Come on, where they're going to be picking at, you're not going to find a Jamal Adams. I mean, you better get that guy real early because he's not going to be there in the teens or 20s. He's not going to be there. Let's do this now. And I think, one of the things with Pete Carroll, his defenses, and even in talking to Coach O about this, that he kind of builds that defense, but the safety position has so much responsibility involved with it. And you think about, what he had at one time in Seattle. Can you name the safeties with Seattle today?
Oh, God.
But at one time you could with Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor.
Yeah.
Real quick, those guys may come to mind. But, I think that Seattle would be another place that would fit. That's not good if he comes to the NFC at all. And I don't think that the Jets would be, again, I don't think they're the smartest team in the NFL by any stretch. They can't be dumb enough to trade him to a team in the AFC. They're going to try to deal him out to the NFC. But I'm just telling you, Matt, in short order, while Jamal has asked to get traded, watch, the Jets will flip the other piece of the card and say, well, we want him here long term. Because they don't want to be boxed in if they got a deal in to say, well, we need to get rid of him. We need to trade him. So their PR department has already probably got that memo ready to give to Jason Lockenfor or Adam Schefter or whoever. No, we want him here full time, a long-term deal. So they don't want to get boxed in there.
Hey, give me Rappaport on line 2.
Yeah, right. Ian also. So you see the games being played here on both sides. I don't think there's any doubt that I think Jamal, haven't heard so much about trade talks, I think understands that with there's smoke, there's fire with that. And that the Jets were actively trying to trade him and didn't get the offer that they wanted.
One more for you, Mike, before we break and get to listener questions. Ed Ogeron added a defensive analyst to the staff with Manny Michel. What do they call him, Little Pete Jenkins?
Little Pete. Manny, he got a lot of W-2s from Louisiana. He was at John Curtis. He was at Nichols. McNeese, UL Monroe. So he got a lot of Louisiana W-2s. And, Manny's from that Pete Jenkins kind of school of thought on techniques. And you think about that defensive line staff and Ed, he's coached and recruited 12 first-round pick defensive linemen throughout his life. And then you throw in Bill Johnson and his experience. And, Benny Logan now is working with them, and Manny comes in. Man, they got a lot of people coaching. It's almost like you got one-on-one coaching.
Lockature as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you got a lot of guys coaching that defensive line, but Manny's a technician coach. He's a guy very similar to Pete, kind of high-energy coach. And, man, he's got to get that finger in the light socket. But you got a lot of energy involved with him, and he knows – the other part of this that's really good, he knows every high school coach in the state of Louisiana.
Yep. I
mean, everybody knows Manny. So I think that was a good pickup for him. He had been out of the game a little bit, but I like to see that they were able to bring him in. He's old school technician now, but, you think about how Benny got into the league and who he was coached by, and Christian, who he was coached by. And Bill Johnson and Ed were coached by the same guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of that world that they know how to coach those defensive linemen. So, with the talent that they have up front, you've got the talent now. And Ed brought it up, and I didn't, but I've said it on your show a lot of times. It's about R&D, recruit and develop. And I heard Ed use that term the other day. I think it was with T-Bob and Jordy, about developmental part of the player. Well, you got some guys that know what they're doing and how to develop defensive linemen there. So that's a great spot for Manny. I'm glad to see him get a job at LSU.
Fire away on Twitter first. Here's Will, who says, Mike, I got a two-parter. Number one, is this the most talented quarterback room ever for the Saints? Also,
ever.
Is this the most talented roster ever for the Saints?
It's the most talented quarterback room ever. I don't think you can debate that part of it. The most talented team, that's on paper it would look like it certainly would be in the top couple that they've ever had. Now they have a cornerback. a veteran cornerback, it may top it. And again, we talked about this a few weeks back, and then you had a week off or so. But, and I'll bring up a couple of names. One, Drake Kirkpatrick, and I brought it up to you a few weeks back. I think he's a guy out there I think that could fit. He's a veteran. He's 30 years old. But, man, I think he could help the unit. Logan Ryan, I think it would cost you a little bit more money. But he's also another guy that could fit. You had a veteran corner. You got a pretty good argument entering the season on paper that you could make that argument. But quarterback, that I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Here's one on Twitter from Mike. Ask Mike, what do the Saints staff think of defensive lineman Gus Cumberlander? Sorry.
Well, the fact that he's there tells you a lot about him. And he's a guy that had some moments at Oregon as a player. He gets hurt only because of the fact that, you didn't get to see him through all those drills and everything. So he's got to make a real quick sort of impact. Now, they're expanding that developmental squad. So I think that's where you would probably see Gus. But, having watched him, he's a really good athlete. But there's some refinement work, and he's certainly with the right coach, with Ryan Nielsen, to do that. So I look at him as more of a developmental guy, but they liked him a lot.
Frank Scanduro on Twitter asked Mike, do the Saints have a third wide receiver they can trust currently on the roster?
I would say that answer is no. I mean, I keep hearing, it's like you trying to sell me on Traquan, okay? And I get it. And you've put a lot in Traquan's basket for this year. And it's sort of make or break for him. We realize that. But why isn't he made a bigger impact before? Again, I just bring that up. Why hasn't it happened for him? Is he a bit of a late bloomer as a receiver? I don't know. I have not seen that guy, to be honest with you. I'm hoping, because I do know the head coach likes him a lot. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't be here.
It's very true. What about Ty Montgomery?
Well, with Ty, I think it's exactly where you're going to play him.
Yeah.
And I think he's a little bit of a hybrid guy that's played over the last few years, Matt. He's played more running back than he's played receiver.
Yep.
And so, but I want him on my roster because, boy, he could fill a couple spots, and he can also help you on special teams, not only in the return game, but also in the punt kickoff coverage part of the game. Ty Montgomery, if he's healthy, he's going to be a tough cut if you got to make it.
Ask Mike, got an update on Jadeveon Clowney?
No, I haven't heard anything. I do know the Browns are still very interested in him. I did hear John Robinson with the Titans say that it's been a little while since they've talked to him. I'm not sure where Jadeveon's going with this. Seattle made him a great offer. He didn't like that. Cleveland made him the best offer. He didn't like that. The Titans made him an offer. He didn't like that. Where's he sort of going with this? And financially, is he piecing himself out of a spot where a contender, or say a major contender, could come in and sign him on a cheaper deal? But he doesn't seem to want a cheaper deal. He seems to want the biggest deal. So I'm not sure what's happening with Clowney.
Ask Mike, what about Ali Gay's development? What have you heard there, Mike?
Man, he looks at, good gracious. I mean, that's how a defensive end, when people are going to see him the first time, that's what a defensive end in a 4-3 looks like. And it's going to be it's not his athleticism or anything else. It's going to be his moves and counter moves to get off of a big tackle. And because his closing speed to the quarterback is really good, it's going to be the technical part of the game for Ali. But, man, Matt, I'm just telling you, if you haven't seen him, that's what a defensive end looks like. Like when I send you that picture of Mason Smith, that's what a defensive tackle looks like. No, Ali Gay, that's what a defensive end looks like. The thing with him is going to be his technical development.
Ask Mike, thoughts on Walker Howard, who, of course, committed on Friday, a day after you and I last spoke.
Watching him and what I've seen him in some of he reminds me so much of Derek Carr when he was coming out of high school and started out at Fresno State. His throwing motion, that quick delivery, that over-the-top, wow. I mean, it's out of there really quick. There's not a lot of hesitation in there. Smart, again, when your dad plays at LSU, you know how to play quarterback. in that spot. And so I think a lot of him as a player. But in comparison, and I like to do that, I think it gives people a little bit of a visual of what you're going to look like. Now, Derek Carr today is different because he's put on some weight, and, he's a mature man. Mm-hmm. But he reminds me a lot of Carr early on at Fresno State. And, boy, he could wing it, and so can Walker.
He's on Twitter at Mike Detillier, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network, part of the SI Network as well. Get on there and check him out. He's with us every Thursday, courtesy of our friends at Sazerac Ride. Mike D next Tuesday in studio with some Sazerac. How about that?
Giddy up, little pony.
All right, Mike. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All righty, brother.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.